How appropriate, a little Bob Marley to bring you into the show. Welcome to Miami. We're live at Bayfront Park. You know, it's been a season where all of those things that always seem to go wrong just went right for the Saints. A little patience, a little luck, and a lot of hard work leading this team to the path of Super Bowl 44. And it's a journey that's perhaps rooted in the sweltering heat of Jackson, Mississippi, and a furnace known simply as Millsaps. One word can still prompt a sour reaction from Saints players even during this Super Bowl week. Millsaps.
Damn. Oh. My gosh, Scott, of all the words, you choose that one. I'm glad that's far behind us.
3 training camps to start the Sean Payton regime held in the heat of Jackson, Mississippi. The first one, a full month of triple-digit heat and dorm rooms.
We wanted that camp to be tough, and we wanted to evaluate really everyone fairly, and yet we wanted it to be mentally and physically draining.
It rained every day for a week before we got there. And then we were there for 31 days, and the only day it rained during that time was on our off day. So, man, those were the dog days.
Fujita is one of 13 players on the Saints Super Bowl roster who made it through that first camp, the dirty baker's dozen, if you will, that helped lay the foundation for this year's run.
Coach Payton, the whole staff, and all the new guys that come in, as well as the pre-existing players, you're trying to find out what you have. And a training camp like that is where you come together. As miserable as it is, that's where you start to come together.
Because misery loves company. The next 2 summers saw the workload lessen and the time spent in Jackson dwindle. This year's training camp was moved back to Metairie, a move that couldn't have come any sooner, even for those players who spent just 1 camp up I-55.
I felt like I just got released from jail, and there was no way I was going back.
We want to welcome in live to the set Saints tight end Billy Miller. Thanks for coming on, and you all know our own Juan Kincaid. You know, Millsaps was thought of to be the legend. That's how Sean Payton termed it today. He thinks that legend's going to grow. I think probably the best story of anything down there was the water park incident. Yeah. Scott Fujita talked about it. He said, my days of water park races were over, and you have an interesting story. You were a casualty from that day.
I did. You know what, man? Anytime you put a group of athletes together, no matter what the scenario, it's going to get competitive. And Scott Fujita almost ruined his career in the water park. I actually went down head first. I was copying one of the other coaches that went down this slide head first. And I'm from California, so normally in the beach, the waves come and you kind of duck your head to go underneath. Well, I did the same for this water slide and ducked my head right into the slide, and I ended up with about 15 stitches over my eye.
And it's all about competition there, isn't it? Because everyone's trying to get the better slide, the harder slide.
The 15 stitches was worth it, no doubt about it.
Your reaction when this camp was moved back to Metairie?
Man, I think it probably gave me an extra 3 years in the NFL. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, that camp was, you know, when I first got to Houston with the Texans, we had a really tough camp, and I thought it was hot. And when we went to Jackson, Mississippi, it changed my life. I mean, it really changed the perspective of what training camp was. And really, if you were to write a script for a movie, you'd have to go to Jackson, Mississippi, because it was just awful. And moving it back was awesome.
It made those camps a lot harder, too, in 07 and 08, when everything wasn't really going your guys' way during the regular season. You guys had kind of set the bar high in 06. So you're going through that sweltering heat, and then you're missing out on the playoffs.
Yeah. No kidding. I mean, I think the first year, you know, it definitely helped. It brought a bunch of guys together who needed some adversity to kind of make it to the next level. We made it to the NFC Championship game and obviously lost. But, you know, after that, you're right. We started to question this Jackson, Mississippi thing and what is the good. So luckily, we had a great season this year, so hopefully we never go back.
Right. I think the one thing that Jackson really helped this football team is kind of bond a little bit. There were still some young players on this football team, and they've got that, you know, when you have adversity, if you can fight through it, you're going to find out which players deserve to be on this team, which ones deserve to stay around.
We talked about this last night. You look back to that New England game, maybe the Jets game. As you're watching from the sideline, you've got a different perspective this season. This team had a pretty good feel about itself going into training camp. When did you see everything start to click? Was there one point in the season?
You know what's funny is the preseason game that I tore my Achilles, I was really upset, obviously. And somebody asked me, hey, you know, what are you most upset about? And I said, you know what? I have a really good feeling this team's going to be really special this year. And from that point on, just going into camp, you felt like the guys that Coach Payton brought together had all that hard work, all the Jackson, Mississippi, all the things that we had done was coming and everything was going to come together. You bring in Greg Williams, guys like Sharper, Tracy Porter's helper, Jabari Greer, all those players coming together, and you see it and go like, you know what, this could be a real special thing.
I think I remember, watching, I think obviously the big move of the offseason was bringing in Greg Williams and bringing in a whole new attitude. But what I noticed in training camp, the defensive players just smacking you guys in the mouth, playing beyond the whistle, stopping when they wanted to stop, and it was like, oh no, all of a sudden the offense has to catch up to the defense for the first time in the last 4 years.
Absolutely. You know what, I agree. I think that we had got kind of accustomed to just beating our defense, and not in a negative way towards any of our players. It was just that our scheme on offense was a little bit better than our scheme on defense. So although it would be competitive, at the end of the day, we would have the last word. And you're right, from the first day, they're stripping at the ball. There's balls on the ground everywhere. I mean, they really changed the way our offense had to play offense as well, because, I mean, ball security, all the things that kind of haunted us in the past, they helped us actually correct.
And one of the guys that kind of helped bring in that transformation was a guy Greg Williams calls the quarterback of his defense, the man in the middle. When we come back on this special Superdome or Super Bowl, it'd be nice.
Be nice if the Dome, wouldn't it?
The Superdome preview special. We look at Jonathan Vilma. Stay with us. Who that got they party on? Who that got you jumping up and down? Who that got your party? Who that got you screaming? And even by those who don't wear black and gold colored glasses, the best group of linebackers ever assembled on any team in any era was the Dome Patrol. Hard-hitting, dependable, and everywhere. Those same attributes can be said about the Saints man in the middle these days, and the latest Pro Bowler at linebacker. Here's Juan Kincaid.
Since he arrived in 2008, Jonathan Vilma has felt the need to prove he belonged.
I think it took 2 years, and the reason I say that is because until I got that on my jersey, you never can say that everyone on the team or on my defense trusts me.
As much credit as defensive coordinator Greg Williams gets for turning this defense around, Vilma deserves just as much for giving it some intelligence, laced with plenty of attitude.
I wouldn't say surprise. I didn't go in looking for that. When I went into New Orleans looking to be the best player I can be. When I'm about football, it's about football. And then, we can have fun and party afterwards. But until then, they want me to lead this group.
His leadership comes through in everything he does on the field. Once Vilma gets the call from Williams, it's his job, based on what he sees before the snap, to go with it or not.
It's always been like that throughout the season. If I feel like I see something, he'll allow me to check it, and he's always giving me that option.
For a franchise that produced arguably the greatest linebacking core in the history of the NFL and the Dome Patrol, Jonathan Vilma has shown at times that he belongs in that same class of players.
That's probably one of the best compliments I can get, especially down in New Orleans. Watching the Dome Patrol, these guys, I said it before, they're probably the best tandem in NFL history. I think at one point they had all four go to the Pro Bowl, or they had 3 out of the 4 go to the Pro Bowl. So you have a group of guys like that together playing that way, and then for the fans to view me in that light, that's a very, very complimentary. You go out there and you win games, and the respect will come if I just keep working. So I wouldn't say I was even looking for it, so I couldn't tell you if I was surprised or not.
I remember talking to Greg Williams during last year's Senior Bowl, and he said the 3 things he needs to make his defense go: a nice guy at nose tackle, a good corner, a good nickel cornerback, and a man in the middle. And in Jonathan Vilma, he certainly has that, a guy that really is the quarterback of the defense. Everything comes from the sideline into him, and it's his decision on what stays and what goes.
Yeah, we welcome back Billy Miller, Saints tight end, into the show. You guys got to go live with him. Who hits harder than maybe Jonathan Vilma?
It depends. It's hard to say, because linebackers, when linebackers and tight ends hit, it's in a shorter range. It's between 3 and 4 yards. Then when you get a safety who's coming from 15 yards with a full head of steam, so it's tough. But I'm gonna tell you what, I couldn't describe Vilma better than the quarterback of the defense. I mean, he's just as involved as Brees is on offense. I mean, he knows every single call, every single defense, knows where everyone's supposed to be. So he's tremendous for our defense.
Is he a special player though? Because we're talking about a guy that's still very young in the league, and he is showing Pro Bowl type qualities every year in and year out. I mean, he's playing like some of the greats of the game. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he was a rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, if I'm not mistaken, and he has constantly been a great football player in this league. He had an injury, of course, that kind of set him back, and kind of a blessing for us was kind of the reason we got him. So I think Jonathan Vilma the situation with Greg Williams has only helped him. And And the way I look at it, I don't see anybody else in our league, especially in NFC, beating him out for that spot for quite some time.
Really, let's get to some stuff that's kind of going on this week now. You guys worked outside today. The weather is a little sketchy coming up on this the Super Bowl week. What are you kind of thinking? Who works in that favor if that field's a little sloshy on Sunday?
Well, you know what? I would like to say it's in our advantage. Statistically, we've run the football better, but I remember the last Super Bowl that Peyton Manning played in, it rained, and people kind of felt that same way, and he pulled out a victory. So you know what? Whenever you're playing a guy like that, you don't want to count him out, but you know what? I still like my chances with number 9 and 25 and 23. I mean, we got 4, tailbacks that touch the ball in the game, so I still like our chances.
I know you guys try to avoid reading all the comments from the papers and listening to television and radio, but the consensus is that this is the Colts' Super Bowl to lose, and you guys are just here to be the other opponent.
You know what? And I want to be careful how to say that, but that's good for us because we play better when our backs are against the wall, and we play with a little bit more hunger when everything's kind of against us. And that's the way our team is built, because you got a bunch of guys, and Drew Brees, who was written off. You got Jonathan Vilmas, you got the Billy Millers, and you got all these guys who have had to fight and claw their way to get to this point, that it's only fitting that we would be the underdog going into this game.
Like the city.
Exactly. It works out perfect.
Right.
Billy, we appreciate you coming down. Real quick, update on you.
I'm good. You know what? I ran today and felt great. I would say I'm probably about 70-75%. So I got some time before I get ready. Right now, I'm just the best looking cheerleader we got on the sideline right now.
I'm not going to disagree with you because you're not going to come down on the show, man. We appreciate it. Have
Thank
fun
you
the
very
rest of the
much.
week down here.
Thank you.
All right, well, stick around, and when we come back, the guy who was throwing some footballs to Billy Miller, Drew Brees, the early years, how his career before the Saints and before the Chargers and before Purdue, it all began. You're watching a live presentation from Miami. Stay with us.
Welcome to the game and greatest test. Peyton's gonna be in.
Let's boogie. Let your body move. You got the black and gold fever.
Welcome back to Miami, site of Super Bowl 44, a destination Drew Brees had in his sights from the moment he signed a free agent contract with the Saints 4 years ago. Juan Kincaid tonight with a look back at where the drive for success began for the quarterback.
Brees has it. End zone, meets him, touchdown. In the pocket, down the middle.
Drew Brees' career as the Saints quarterback is barely 4 years old, and he's already reached legendary status with the black and gold faithful. Fiery in the huddle, a tactician in the pocket, and quite the influential personality outside the arena. In Brees, the Crescent City has the perfect ambassador. But it hasn't been all glitz and glamour for number 9, and for that part of the story, we decided to bring you back to where it all began, his hometown of Austin, Texas. This is his alma mater, Westlake High School, where Drew Brees' football career began. Not really in a traditional sense, like on the Pop Warner fields. No, Brees' journey to the NFL definitely began on the road less traveled.
He went to a private school here in Austin, St. Andrews Episcopal, and they didn't have tackle football, they had flag football.
And for Chip Brees, that was the best option for his son at that time.
As a kid playing flag football, you're so much more involved in the game, so you're throwing the ball on every play. I think you're just able to develop a lot faster.
When you're playing flag football, I think it almost kind of hones your skills a little bit more.
Johnny Rodgers got a better understanding of this once Brees became his teammate at Westlake. That's where their friendship began, and the competition for playing time began. Rodgers was ahead of Brees on the depth chart for quarterbacks, albeit on the freshman team.
He didn't really look the part. He really didn't look the part.
But there were times when he certainly played the part, well enough to raise some eyebrows.
And I remember watching Drew in a B-team game, and I said, this kid is, he's not going to be a B-team player much longer.
I saw Drew throw this fade route right down the sideline and just hit the receiver in stride. And I said to myself, I'm in trouble. I might lose my job.
But that's not how Drew felt. In fact, because of a lack of opportunities, he'd become increasingly disinterested in playing football.
I remember kind of riding home with my mom in the car and saying, you know, Mom, I might want to quit football just because I don't think I'm ever going to get an opportunity. And I love baseball and I love basketball, and I feel like I can get a scholarship in one of those two sports to play in college. And I remember her telling me, you just got to trust that your opportunity will come.
The last scrimmage before the season started, when they were both sophomores, Johnny tore his ACL.
And all of a sudden I'm thrown in the mix, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, my head's spinning. I didn't mean for this to happen, you know, but here I am.
Starting quarterback for the freshman A team with an appointment to varsity football coming 1 year later.
Johnny Rogers had this major knee surgery, and Drew played that entire season and gained all that experience.
I was kind of anointed as the next, you know, it was like Jay Rogers, and then Johnny Rogers was going to come in and play.
I was just happy to be there.
It's the type of takeover that could have killed the locker room, and especially their friendship, but the exact opposite happened.
That had to have been hard for Johnny, you know, because he was the heir apparent. He took it with such grace.
There was no animosity, and for whatever reason, I think it's just because, you know, we were always good friends.
In fact, Johnny, Ben, and Drew did everything together. They were inseparable, both on and off the field.
We were typical high school students. We, you know, got in trouble a little bit.
Some other tidbits about Drew Brees, the teenager. Well, as the quarterback, he had a certain image to uphold.
Drew has always taken pride in how he looks.
He had to get his you know, his hair had to be perfect. When the term pretty boy came along, I mean, that's Drew Brees.
Yeah, I was a little bit of a pretty boy, I'll be honest.
Love the mirror?
I did.
Mirror loved you?
I just had to get it just right, you know, for the high school girls.
Cause I'm Snoop Doggy, Doggy, Doggy.
My first car was a 1983 Volvo. We called it the Silver Bullet. It was silver, had 125,000 miles on it, just kind of the nasty cloth seats. But I had put, at the time, what I thought was some really cool 6x9 speakers in the back. Just 6x9s. Play Snoop Dogg all the time, kind of roll around town, thinking I was all that in my 83 Volvo, the Silver Bullet.
And from that came the nickname.
Doggy.
Doggy?
Doggy.
So the pretty boy with the golden arm, the shiny wheels, and the cool nickname had it all going for him. That is, until things came to a crashing halt during his junior season.
Went into the bedroom. I'll never forget Drew had the ice machine on his leg, and he was crying. It was very scary.
Tomorrow night on our special Super Bowl preview show at 6:30, Juan Kincaid with part 2 of Doggy's story. We hope you join us. We'll stay with us after the break. We continue our countdown of the Saints' top plays of their historic 2009 season. We're live in Miami. Well, all this week, we've counted down the Saints' top plays from 2009. Tonight, play number 3, or the play we're simply calling the Beltway burglary.
Brees throws. It's up for grabs. Was it picked off? Kareem Moore's got the ball. It's an interception. And then it's taken away by Robert Meacham. Meacham goes in for a touchdown.
A costly turnover turned into a momentum-changing score. Robert Meacham's strip 6 is number 3 on our countdown. A play in which he was just looking for a tackle, not a touchdown.
He was going to get down. That's what I was thinking in my head. Like, I got to get to him before he gets down. And it may have shocked him that I got between his blockers. And I stripped him, and all I saw was Devery. He's one of the fastest guys on the field. I figure if I can outrun Devery, I got a touchdown.
Well, each night we've asked you to log on to WWL-TV.com. Give us your thoughts on the plays, what you thought about the plays we picked. Cherie, Houdat Drez, wrote in and said Robert Meacham's strip and score in the Washington game, the only time Drew Brees was hoping his interception was upheld. She's right, and it was. Well, we appreciate you tuning in and joining us tonight. A special thanks to Billy Miller for stopping by, for Juan Kincaid, and everyone else who makes this show work. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow, live from Miami.
Let's watch the Saints go marching in. Come on down, let's watch them win. It's our year, it's plain to see. The Superdome is the place for me. Saints rock. When the toughest team Saints roll, you'll see what I mean. Saints rock. The fans will do